We are recording. Okay, so Melissa Mills. She's not actually now an assistant governor, I don't think, are you? Or are you? Nope, it starts in July. But Melissa has been doing her job for a number of years as the person that's the contact for the district of the 4750 clubs in the district now to Rotaract. And Rotaract is gaining a new position within Rotary, a more prominent position. And I'm sure Melissa will tell us a bit about that. Melissa has a very eclectic past. She has her bachelor's from the college at Connecticut College, and she's got 2 master's degrees from Duke. She's got an MBA from Duke and also a master's in theology. And she has worked in the medical field and as a writer and as a consultant and done a bunch of things. So anyway, Melissa, and she's been a Rotarian I tried to look you up, Melissa, but Melissa has had the experience of being a member of more than one club. And so sometimes when you switch clubs, you lose your, how many years have you been in Rotary thing? So how many years have you been in Rotary, Melissa?
Since 2006.
All right, so a while. So about 14, 15 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so take it away.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Is it all right if I share my screen?
Please.
I'll see if, yes, it looks like that's going to work. Maybe I'm supposed to go into presenter mode before I share my screen. I'm not sure. Am I supposed to?
Doesn't matter. You can do it either way.
Okay. I'll just go like this. And then I will go into presenter mode. Here we are. So the title, good morning and good afternoon. I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm excited to be able to make this presentation. The title, Growing Younger with Rotary, is a bit of a pun, as you will soon find out, because I'm going to talk about what human thriving is and why Rotary works, and then zero in on Rotaract, and then I'll bring it all together after that, so that you can see why I'm talking about human thriving and Rotary before talking about Rotaract, and how all of this actually makes us younger, which is a philosophical question, because what does it mean to be young? It's kind of, I'd love to have this be interactive, but I don't know how well that will work. What is it? Can I ask you all? I don't know if I can see the chat. I don't think I can see the chat. What does it mean? Just call out. There's only a couple of us. What does it mean to grow younger?
I think to be more active probably is what you're likely to go for. I know that when David and I are doing well and actually more active, we feel a little bit younger than our really old ages.
Right. And when it's like we might lose a physical capacity, but then we think, how are we going to get around it? Does anyone ever lose any physical capacities and then come up with an innovation of how to get around that?
I'm working on it. 5 miles in 40 minutes.
Wow.
That's the mindset, but the body says no.
Right.
I'm trying to keep that younger frame of mind, and I want to keep myself physically fit so I can keep myself active.
Right.
I love to stay busy, and I found out I feel better and I rest better at night if I keep myself active.
Yes.
So that's my younger perspective, is trying to keep myself fit. It clears my mind, my thought process, and as I just stated, I feel much better. But right. I can't get back to running 40-minute 5 miles, 8-minute miles.
You are an inspiration to me, but you really have you've hit the nail on the head. It's that we keep striving and that we don't take no for an answer. And so that's kind of, younger is your attitude, right? Would you say that's what you just described, Boyd?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, but we're we're going to look at what it means to thrive. And so these are philosophical questions. I might say that some people spend their whole lives trying to figure out what they mean, but so we're going to push through this. And what I'm going to say is that human thriving is a balance between our competition and cooperation. It unites our heart, our mind, and our body. And so there's a balance and an integration and an alignment with what is happening. So that alignment goes way outside of ourselves into our families, our friendships, our organizations, our communities, our nation, and our world. Does that sound about right to you all? So the competition and cooperation part is fun. And challenges like what you just described, Boyd, those become fun when they're not seen as obstacles, but they are seen as challenges that we can overcome. And when they're seen as opportunities to grow, because youth has with it the sense of growth, but it's not necessarily just growing bigger. It is growing in capacity, growing in understanding, growing in the integrity of our connections, both with ourselves and with our world. So I want to talk about the heart and the mind and the body, because it turns out that Socrates was right. Plato wrote the Republic, and he talked about blowing up a city into a republic, and that there were 3 bodies that were all interacting. And it turns out we do have 3 bodies. We have a mind that's a neural center. The heart is a neural center, and our gut is actually a neural center. Now, the thing that kind of is surprising that has come to light in the past 20 years or so is that the conscious part of the brain only uses on the order of 40 megabytes per second of data. It's only able to process that much, while the rest of our brain and body, our neural capacity, processes 11 million bits per second. So you start to see that our consciousness is really a tiny tip of the iceberg. So how do we manage to do all the balance and the integration and the alignment? Is we work together with each other. And we're probably, this is familiar to you, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What it does is it creates a place that is safe, this hierarchy of needs, because it addresses the physiological needs. And that lets us feel physically safe. And when we feel safe, we can start to spend more time loving and belonging. That gives us esteem and then self-actualization. But this is something we do together. No one takes care of all of our physiological and safety needs by ourselves, and no one loves or belongs by themselves. This is something that communities do. What individuals do is what Boyd just described, which is we start with an aspiration of self-actualization. And if you have any young friends or grandchildren, you have seen them try, and your own children, you've seen them struggle to lift their heads up, and then you've struggled to eat, struggled to walk. There's this inner desire to become something that you can become. You want to become your best self. You also need those genuine relationships. That's what makes you feel safe. But you also have this feeling that you want to make a contribution that's outside of yourself, that's larger than yourself. All of this is supported by positive psychology and flow. So what we're really doing is we're taking Maslow's hierarchy and we're flipping it upside down so that the individual is doing the self-actualization to create the capacity to make lots of physiological safety for our communities, while the community is providing the safety within which this takes place. So how do we do this? Now, the way we do this, we need to understand that everything is changing all the time. so that there is this growth mindset. That's what young youth is this ongoing, we have never quite reached that plateau where we can just sit back, that we are continuing in one way or another to grow. When our physical capacities start giving out, we create, we rely on our children or our grandchildren or our community, or we band together to take care of those who are reaching that point. But we don't have this fixed mindset of it is like this, and so it is like this. What we need to understand is that our actions, our thoughts, and our feelings are all connected, so that what we think precedes what our actions are. What we think affects our feelings. Our feelings affect what we think, and they also affect how we act. And our actions change where we are and what we're experiencing, which then gives us different thoughts and feelings. So we're always kind of strategizing that. That's how we negotiate that 40 megabits per second, because the consciousness is filtered through our feelings, our actions, and our thoughts, which well up from the 11 million bits per second of stuff that's going on. So what I wanted to just point out is a little bit of neuroscience. And this is from an online course that's available on Coursera, taught by Dr. Dan Segav at the Hebrew University. And what it shows is an experiment that was done on some kittens. So this was done on live animals. There was a little litter of kittens that was born in darkness. They were only taken into the light. These two kittens were taken to the light only when they were put in these little baskets, and the little basket went around in a circle. And one kitten got to put their legs out and feel the ground, and the other kitten just sat in the basket and took a little ferry ride, like a Ferris wheel. And what happened is, after this, when the kittens got a little bit older, the active kitten was a completely normal kitten, the one who could touch the ground, whose feet could feel the ground. The kitten who was in the basket going around in circles with no sensory perception to its other neurons, no co-firing, was blind. It never learned to see, because it never learned that outside world that was somehow or another making impressions on its brain had any meaning. There was no feedback from it. So that's really pretty startling, but it shows that what fires together wires together. So be careful what you think, be careful what you do, because it will, it all kind of comes together. Now, the other neurological thing that is really stunning, and this is research that took place in my lifetime, because when I was growing up, I was told that you had a certain number of brain cells, and when they died, that was it. But it turns out that we create, it's called neurogenesis. We birth new neurons that come and migrate where activity is needed. But not only that, but where we already have neurons and connections between the neurons, when we use those, we create more synaptic nodes. Okay, so what you do when you get better at it, it's because your body's putting more resources there. So now I'm going to go and say, here's the growth mindset. We talked about you want to have a growth mindset, and you start with aspiration. So you kind of imagine something and then you do it, and that generates an emotion, but you can reflect upon the emotion and think about it, and you can decide whether it was the kind of emotion you wanted, whether the outcome is what you wanted or not. And then you go on and you modify it and you repeat. You do this again. Now, when you don't do this reflection piece, then you are more like a program that's stuck going around in circles, and that doesn't have growth in it. That's more of the fixed mindset. So now I'm going to shift over to Rotary, because we are people of action, and that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about that the action is a inextricable part of the growth. There's action, feelings, and thought. And the action is, if we don't like how we're feeling or what our emotions are, we can take action to change what it is that's bothering us. Rotary is a forum for doing that. We get to meet people that otherwise we would never have met. And there's several people on this call that I haven't met. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from you in a minute. It's a safe place. Now, I pointed out earlier that safety is really critical because we're trying things that might not work. We don't need to be expert at what we're doing. We can take that risk of volunteering for a position like treasurer or secretary, sergeant at arms that we've never done before. We can stretch ourselves and be surrounded by people. And we know that because of the four-way test, because of the integrity, the character, and the service component, that we're among people who care, who don't, it's what we're doing that we have in common, not, we're not competing to see who's the best at doing it. So Rotary works because it's about professional growth. There are certain, we have very high standards of quality because we really elevate friendship, and that's really what it's about. And because what we're doing is we're making contributions. And I think that this is David and Marie here. Is that right? So together we see a world where people unite to create lasting change across the globe and in our communities and in ourselves. I think I have a typo there. Almost every meeting that I've ever been to, we have said the four-way test. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do is a test. It isn't a statement that we are people of the truth. It isn't a statement that we are fair to all concerned. It's really a statement that we want to do things that are true. And sometimes we need to ask somebody else, is my truth? This is what my truth is. What does it look like to you? We have to test what is the truth. Because while the truth may be out there, I'm not the one who is the keeper of it. And is it fair? That's kind of like when you ask two children who wants, is it fair or not? One might not think it's fair and the other one might think it's fair. You have to kind of negotiate between them. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? That is really a key question. That is just so key. That was the one that got me into Rotary. Realizing that it wasn't just about what I did, but it was about whether it was creating goodwill and better friendships. And will it be beneficial to all concerned is way above my pay grade. We can only hope and intend and be open to admitting when we're wrong. So Rotary, what Rotary does is it gives us a place where we can amplify our values. And what happens is culture actually springs from values because values are what underlies everything in our subconscious. And it kind of comes out, we're able to go through our rituals. We have those heroes, we like our presidents of clubs, district governors, and presidents of Rotary International and our symbols. But it's our practices that run through the whole thing that allow the integration. And once again, the practices are the things that build the neural capacity that make us more and more capable of doing things. Those are how we grow. And it's through our reflection, our modification, and our repetition in the Rotary playground where it's safe. So I'll pause there for a second and just ask, are there questions or comments just at this point?
Melissa, I'd just like to thank you for having a whole different spin on what is Rotary. I'm experienced with a little bit of this neuroplasticity and some of the other comments that you made early on, but I appreciate you reframing Rotary in that way. It was interesting. Interesting take, meaningful take on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie. Yeah, I can't leave Rotary because Rotary to me is what the best of humanity is. And that's what I feel my purpose on life is, is to become the best specimen of this human race that I can be. And I can't do it by myself. I have to do it in a community. And it involves not thinking about me and not even thinking, it's the community making the changes. And
I think one comment, I mean, to me, in my interpretation, it almost came across that when you grow old chronologically, you cease to be young. And that is just not true.
right.
And so when you say growing young with Rotary, I think we have to be careful. We're not talking chronological age.
Right.
We're talking psychological age, perhaps. And if you get down to that level, then I absolutely agree that Rotary helps you to grow young and stay young, because you get more involved in a whole myriad of activities and friendships and relationships. So as long as I actually have a hang up about Rotary more actively involving Rotaract, because it makes that division according to age. And we've got to be careful about that. Not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying we haven't thought enough about it.
Thank you, David, for bringing that up. And I feel like that that's very astute. And I feel like it is an open question, isn't it? I've heard it in other forums that are talking about the change. And I don't remember what the forums were, but just the question of if they are fully Rotarians, why not just call them Rotarians? And the way I see it is, as you said, it's kind of it's a try, and we're going to see how it works, and then we'll see how we need to modify it. And the reason I named it the name of the talk, Growing Younger with Rotary, is one, because I wanted a pun, and two, because I made a decision. This is a revelation. So this is kind of, I don't know if you want to hear this. I decided when I was 10 years old that the way that I was going to keep the mind of a child was I was just going to stay 10 and see how that worked. And so I've been trying to do that for a really long time now. And that has helped a lot. And it's been a big challenge too. So it's that mind of a child type thing, and that one is as young as one thinks one is. And that with age, I hope to grow wiser. And that I admire my 98-year-old father, who, when he was losing his ability to remember what he had done and what he didn't do, came up with physical methods of keeping track so that he could go and check if he'd done something or not. So I need to get there, because I'm beginning to forget things a lot. Does that make sense, David?
Yeah, and you just triggered another thought that I'm reading a book right now called Think Again, and it basically is talking about ways to think outside the box to get rid of reactions that you've become used to. And I don't necessarily mean physical, it's just we've always done it this way, it's worked for us, so we'll always do it that way. And I think one of the things I enjoy about being chronologically older is bringing all of that experience of a lifetime and applying it to whatever I happen to be involved in. So it's not staying young, although I feel like I'm still young. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's bringing all the life experiences into it, mm-hmm. But not allowing yourself to stagnate. Think differently, get out the box, use that experience and find different ways, new ways to do things.
Right. Yes.
I'd
so
like to just
it-
step back for 1 second and just for language, not everybody here has been in Rotary very long, and Doug Boyd is a past Rotarian and is not currently in Rotary. Rotaract is the Rotary equivalent for young adults traditionally, and we're in the process of changing Rotaract's relationship with Rotary, and that's kind of where we are in this discussion. So, Melissa.
Thank you for that, Marie. And also thank you. I've been calling Doug Boyd because that was the name that came up. And so I'm embarrassed. So thank you for that correction. Is it okay? Should I call you Doug, or what should I call you, since I'm only just meeting you?
Hey, Boyd is fine.
Okay, well, you can call me Mills.
All right, Mills.
Just call him Colonel and salute.
Okay, Colonel. Oh, that is, I like that. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So thank you for that, Marie, for making that clarification. And I think what you described, David, was the growth mindset, and the growth mindset that I am still adding capacity, and that I've got this wonderful base that's, but I'm integrating what I have experienced, what I have learned, with where we are now and what I need, where I need to be going. So that's the growth mindset. And I think what I'm doing is redefining what, I'm not redefining younger, but I'm saying that this continuation of growth is what keeps us young. And then the pun part isn't that we individually get younger, but that as Rotaract, the number of Rotaractors increases, that the average age of a Rotarian will get younger. So I'm referring to the collective nature of our species, that the human individual is not human by themselves. We gain our humanity as we operate and live together. That's really, we're an ultra social species. We can't be human by ourselves. That we aren't human except for as we come together in communities. And I'm not saying that monks and people who go off in the wilderness aren't human. I'm saying that they were born and learned and were raised and have that all in them as they decide to go out, and they're still connecting. So it's more like the Mowglis of the world who get raised by wolves. It kind of takes them a while to acclimate to what it means to be human. It can be done though. And I have a book. There's a great book called The Boy Who Was Raised by a Dog. The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. So I recommend that book before I'm going to switch into Rotaract Rising. So Rotaract Rising is a Rotary International term. And what it's referring to is that the young people who were Rotaract and Interact have historically been programs of Rotary clubs. So a Rotary club could, as a program activity, sponsor an Interact, which is in high school. It's a high school club that's like Rotary. It's a service club. It has the 4-way test and the integrity and character development. And Rotaract is then a college age, and it used to be up to 30 years old. So it was from 18 years old to 30 years old. It was a program. You could not be a Rotaractor unless you had a Rotary club sponsor you, and unless there was a Rotary advisor who kind of made sure you were hanging in there okay. What has happened is they have elevated Rotaract, and I'll just move along here. They've elevated Rotaract so that it is now a type of Rotary membership. So you can be an active Rotarian or an active Rotaractor, and you're still, it's the same thing. So you have to be at least 18 years old. And there are two kinds of Rotaract clubs. One is a university-based, one is a community-based one. And there at this point, this was effective last July 1st. So not until a year from this July 1st, 2022, will any dues need to be paid. And the dues are just, so this is kind of just the bookkeeping stuff. University-based dues are less because the feeling is that these are students who are they're in a study, they're already in a university, they're paying all kinds of dues for that. They don't necessarily have time to work. Community-based dues are a little bit higher because it's thought that they may actually be out in the community with a job. The other changes are that they get to apply for district grants, that they can establish a club without a Rotary sponsor, that they can sponsor other Rotaract clubs, and they can define the upper age of their members. So this really calls into question the point that David pointed out, because I could become a Rotaractor and no longer pay this year and next year and not pay dues to Rotary. And that would be within the rules. Or I could switch my membership and then pay $8 a year. I can't be a university-based one, but unless I went back and became an undergraduate. And, you know, I think that this all goes to, well, what is Rotary about? It's about service. Why do you join? Because you want to take the abundance that you have and share it with the world. So I really think that we do everything in Rotary on the basis of this is what we want to do, and we want to do what's right. Rotary clubs, go, do I hear a question?
Yeah, I actually quite strongly disagree that Rotary is about service. Rotary was first founded by Paul Harris for fellowship.
Okay.
And Rotary throughout the years has lost some of that, some more than others. Service is our product. And I think through fellowship and through sharing of ideas, you come up with the service adventures. And if we just focus on service, we lose some of the glue that holds our organization together. And I think that is exacerbated by this involvement of Rotaract, because they do not have the same, they have fellowship amongst themselves, but there's an age cutoff. The two groups don't mingle in terms of social activities, in terms of fellowship. And I think we will lose something essential to Rotary in doing that.
Thank you for expressing that view. I think that that's something that we need to be very aware of. And if we go back to that picture of the aspiration and the idea and then the practice and then modifying it, that's, I think we need to keep in mind that we have to be very mindful of what you just pointed out today, David, that if we become only like automatons for service, then we're losing the heart. We're losing the heart of the connection in fellowship. We're losing the fun and maybe becoming way too serious and judgmental, or you didn't volunteer or you did volunteer or whatever.
I'd like to add something to that. I just yesterday had a meeting with a group that's considering sponsoring a satellite club for entrepreneurs. And the question was simply, well, what are these guys going to do? Are they going to do service? And I had to remind them that Rotary has 5 avenues of service, one of which is vocational, the other of which is club. And the fellowship is really kind of in the club service. It's like, how do we build connections? How do we support each other? And so Rotary, if we step back and look at it, actually does value this. We just have to remind ourselves that service is more than just serving the community. There are 5 ways we have institutionalized service within the organization.
Right. And well, I think my time is up, so I want to, because it's 12:40. So can I just hurry through the rest of this? And I think
Sure.
that there's a lot of conversation that we get to have. We're hoping next year to start a Rotaract club at St. Augustine's. And there are 2 Rotaract clubs that need reactivating or rebuilding. And I wanted to just invite anyone who is interested in growing Rotaract. And then I want to also address what David said about the age divide. I see this as an opportunity. Say we have salad dressing of oil and vinegar, and the oil is at the top, the vinegar is at the bottom. I see elevating Rotaract as shaking that bottle and making something that's a really delicious dressing. So I see this as a way of creating more opportunities for Rotaractors and Rotarians to be with one another. And it is through that proximity with the younger generation, listening to their lingo, hearing what their point of view is, which sometimes it really surprises me sometimes, that is another way for us to feel more refreshed and still growing, and maybe even more in touch with what in heaven's name is happening in the world, and what can we do to address it. So I see this as my job, and I am so grateful to the district for elevating my position to an assistant governor. I see my role as making introductions into Rotary clubs and really reaching out to Rotarians to ask their assistance in identifying those so many young people who are aching to do something with one another, to meet people because maybe they've moved to this area for a professional reason but don't know people, and give them something that they can do together, because it's that doing together that I call service. It's the doing together, and instead of each one them by themselves. And I think what Rotary does is we do it together. I think that that's really the heart of what I have found in Rotary. And then I have this is why Rotary works in my mind, is that the Rotary International, the network of clubs and the network that we are introduced into by virtue of being members of Rotary, that we have a worldwide network that will help keep us safe, and that we help keep safe. But we as individual Rotarians are all aspiring, and it is in our aspiration here that we create this thriving world. So that's and then I just want to say that's the direction that the universe is taking. The cosmic journey of physics and evolution. Physicists and biologists see order coming out of disorder and increasing order coming from order. And then this ongoing emergence of the new that David mentioned, he's talking about thinking of outside the box and how we continue to create new things. And that this is what Rotary gives a playground to do things in. So that's my presentation. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa. Could you put the name of that book that you just scrolled through in the chat so we can capture it? And also, I'd love your slides just because there's some really good stuff on them, and I will steal it if it's okay with you.
Sure.
And the other thing, I've totally lost it. I don't remember what I was going to say. So there you go. So, but let me share my screen for a second. And very, very helpful and interesting approach. As I said, I know what it was. As you begin to develop these Rotaract clubs, particularly the one in Wake Tech, which is probably the closest one, maybe also St. Aug's, those would be ones that we could probably reach out to from the Nightdale group. And, we do need to expand our reach. And gee, perhaps listening to a young person wouldn't hurt, you know? So let me share my screen for a second and if I can, all right, share screen. Melissa, I know you've got many awards and degrees, but do you have a certificate of appreciation from the Rotary Club of Nightdale? You will soon. I will email it to you. So thank you very much for this. And any other questions for Melissa? We've got a couple minutes before we need to go to, we've got a long list of announcements today, but before we get there, anybody have any questions for Melissa?
I don't have a question. A great briefing in it. When you talked about growth versus mindset, it brought back some of the things that we used to do, especially if you're competitive. You know, you set your goals and things like that. And I used to set a goal, for instance, the run 100 meters, anyone. And my intent was to beat them. If I lost, then you go back through the process. You train, you set your mindset to be able to reduce your time. And the second time is that the goal is to win. Now, if you fail, you just tell yourself, hey, I've done my best. That's a better athlete than I am. So I'm sending you a